Alright, so I'm on a bit of a roll this week. I made some changes to Brigo, or a single change to Brigo, one single change to Shroom, posted those. During the videos I was complaining about not really having any content, and here we go with my third video this week, which after the past few months of silence is a strong output. Anyway, so what I've done is my playgroup, they started thinking again that money is the reason why some people do better in the games than others. I have my doubts. One of the lads spends quite a bit of money and doesn't seem to really get anywhere, but it's in what he spends money on and the fact that he doesn't practice very often, so his knowledge of what his deck should do, the cuts he makes, the additions he puts in, aren't exactly ideal. Anyway, so what we decided is everybody would make a deck that is either no more than 100 euros, going by Magicard Market, English, near mint, non-foil, price is the floor. So if some foil card is, say, 30 euros, but the flat version is 2, it would count for 2 as far as upgrading the decks. Which leads me to the other thing. So either somebody would build a deck ad hoc, bespoke, for 100 euro value based on the conditions I just laid out, or take a pre-constructed deck and they could make additions up to 50 euros in value. Granted, the PreCon decks used to be cheaper. Back when they first came out, they were 30 euros. Now they're about 50. So the 100 euro deck is your 50 euro PreCon plus changes. And for my PreCon, I chose Sam and Frodo. And I must say the deck is a blast. It's great to play. Every turn I have some decision to make. I'm doing something. I didn't feel in the 2 games I actually played it that I was irrelevant at any point in the game. So I really enjoyed it. The first thing I did in the deck is I made one change. I took out a forest for the Shire. At the same time, every card that I could get in foil, I bought a foil copy of and put it in the deck. At that time, I made no changes to the stock PreCon deck list, except for the aforementioned forest for the Shire. Now I'm making a lot of other changes. These changes will stay in world. They will stay Lord of the Rings changes. I will not be putting in any other cards from any other Magic franchise into this deck because I want to keep that Lord of the Rings feel. And conversely, I don't want to pollute my other decks by putting in cards from the Lord of the Rings into those decks. So there will be a firewall between this deck, Frodo and Sam, and the rest of my Magic collection. It is completely arbitrary, I admit, but it's just what I want to do for the way I perceive the game and the way I feel about it and the way I want to play. So first off, let's go over the changes. Mithril Coat. This is not slated to go in yet. I'm not sure what to pull out. Probably field-tested frying pan, but I want to play with it a bit to make sure. So whenever I go play, I have a small box of cards with additions that can go into certain decks. So if something shows that it's not as it doesn't hit the way I want it to, I have something to immediately swap it out between rounds. So at the end of the game, a card that didn't do what I wanted to do or doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders, I will swap it out for something in my sideboard, for lack of a better term. So Mithril Coat. Flowering in the White Tree, same thing. I'm not sure if I want to put it in, but I went ahead and bought a copy because I can see myself doing it. I mean, it's fantastic. Legendaries get +2/+1 in Ward. Non-legendaries get +1/+1 for 2 white. Crusade on steroids. I mean, it's fantastic. Cards I took out, let's start there. So the cuts I made, and these are not purely 1-for-1. I didn't take out one land for land, one artifact for... Nah, I just took out a bunch. So Evolving Wilds, I just figured I didn't need it. So cut that. Commander Sphere. I never liked Commander Sphere. I never felt that it's worth the cost. So cut that. Hithlane Rope. I like it. I like the flavor. I like the feel. I don't like passing it to my opponents. So that's why it's being cut. I don't want to help them and then be waiting for them, you know, hey, Smokey, puff, puff, give, man. Pass the duchy from the right-hand side. Okay, Pristine Talisman. For the cost, the effect just isn't worth it. Butterbury. So I actually got him in play the one time I ran the stock version, and it was okay. Okay, beginning my end step, vital control of food, create a food token. So usually what I would do before my end step, if I had 2 or fewer foods, I would eat them. So I would get a free food out of him. And after I thought, okay, this is nonsense. If I had 3 or more, he's just a 3/3. Doesn't really do anything. And what's the point? So I took him out. Birds of Paradise. This is basically a 1-for-1 change. So in my mind, 1-for-1 Birds of Paradise for Delighted Halfling. The downside is she only produces colored mana for legendaries I control, which should be no problem at all in this deck. But I'll see. In flying, this deck is very short on flyers. The toughness and power boost is nice. And she's a halfling, so she goes the halfling theme of the deck. So anyway, Birds of Paradise is coming out. I could leave it in easily. It doesn't quite feel like it belongs in the deck to me. So I'm cutting it for Delighted Halfling. Generous Hint. For the mana cost, it just... Okay, it's a 5/7. Make some food, but it just doesn't feel like it's worth the mana cost. And this is one of the cards that I did buy in foil. So I made the extra effort to buy in foil, and now I'm cutting it. C'est la vie. Et maintenant. So Great Oak Guardian, same thing. I had him in my hand during one game for about 6 turns, till the end of the game. I just didn't want to cast him. I wanted to keep him up as a combat trick, and it didn't matter. And to hold off 6 mana, a lot of times I didn't have the mana, even if I wanted to use him as a combat trick. So there he goes. Orchard Strider, basic land cycling, creates food tokens. I don't know, I'm just not big on land cycling. It doesn't impress me. I know that a lot of people are getting good value out of it, but there's other things I'd rather do, so I'm cutting him. So cutting a 6-drop, 6/4. Does he have trample? No, he doesn't even have trample. Eagles of the North, the same thing as the Great Oak Guardian. 6 mana. I'm holding up 6 mana to get my creatures first strike with flash. No, he doesn't have flash. Okay, that's just worthless then. Never mind. Call for Unity. This can be nice. It can get out of hand slowly because it only gets 1 counter on my turn. So I decided to cut it. See if anything works better. I could have put Flowering in the White Tree instead and get a guaranteed result. Fumigate. I like this card. Destroy creatures, gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. It's effective, kills all the creatures, but it decided to try the Battle of Bywater instead. So those are the cuts I'm making. The additions, so the Shire, that's already been decided. The Forest has already been pulled. Barrow Blade, I want to try this for that creature loses all abilities till end of turn whenever the equipped creature blocks or is blocked. A friend of mine was playing Kemba. Kemba had a boatload of equipment attached to her. And this would have been fantastic. Okay, well, there it goes. You trample. First strike, double strike, everything. And then I can block her without too much of a problem. Otherwise, having a 10-10 double striking, trampling commander, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So I'm going to try that. Bilbo's Ring. So I think this would be good for getting my hobbits through. In one game, no shit, in one game, Frodo got up to the 30-31. Something like, he was huge, but I couldn't get him through. Didn't have trample. I hadn't drawn my Rogue's Passage. He couldn't go through the access tunnels because he was too big. So I need some way to get him through. Here we go, Bilbo's Ring. Lotho Corrupt Sheriff, so I'm trying to beef up the halfling theme. And also his ability, it should be pretty good. So it just sits there, it's just static. Whenever somebody casts her second spell, I gain a life and create a treasure token. No matter who it is. Sam Gamgee. Now Sam and Boromir are going to be good friends, I think. So Boromir, I can sacrifice him. A creature as I control gain indestructible. Sam, sacrifice 3 foods, return target historic card from my graveyard to your hand. So the other abilities are nice. Vigilance, he counters spells if no mana was spent to cast it. Never non-token creature enters the battlefield under my control, create food. So I sacrifice 3 foods, I get Boromir back. I play Boromir, I get another food. I only need 2 more to do it again. And off we go to the races. Okay, Delighted Halfling, I already explained her. So Eleanor Gardner, I don't know, I just want to give it a try. So comes in, creates food. Beginning of my end step, if I sacrifice food, I can go find a basic land and put it in a play tapped. Which I'll probably be doing a lot, because even without her, I was eating a lot of food. And I've added all these cards that make more food and double my tokens and other happy shit. Anyway, Meriadoc Brandybuck. So whenever I attack with halflings, I create a food token. It only creates an extra 1 per turn, because it's 1 or more. But otherwise she's a 2/2 for 2. She fits halfling theme. Let's give her a shot. Is it a she? Sure so looks like a she. And it has been so long since I've read the books, I cannot remember. I should probably read the books again. Peregrine Took. He's fantastic. 1 or more tokens to be created. I double the tokens. Well, if they're food tokens, which is pretty much what I'm creating. Yeah, there's a few things that create treasure tokens, but most of it's food. So he says double your food. Intis Restoration. I've got a friend years ago. He never missed a land drop. By turn 6, he would have something like 10 or 11 lands. We could never figure out how the hell is he always ramping. And then he decided to get out of the game, and he sold me his deck. So I got to see his secret. His secret was he had something like 33 or 34 land and 10 ramp spells and a couple ramp creatures and mana rocks. So he never missed for ramping. And he could run his deck really lean on lands because he had so many ramp spells. Had so many ways of accessing the lands. I've gone that far with this deck. This deck has 37 lands the way I have it built. And I added in Intis Restoration, sacrifice a land, find 2 basic lands, put them on a battlefield tapped. So it's kind of like mulch. Not mulch, harrow. It's basically a harrow for basic lands. Although if I have a big creature, instead I could find 3 basic lands, put them in a play tapped. So I wanted to add another ramp spell, so I did. Many partings. This, as far as considering a 1-for-1 exclusion, a 1-for-1 cut, the Evolving Wilds was cut for this. So it's a 1 mana cost ramp spell that creates a food token. So it advances my game plan in 2 ways. One, goes and finds a color that I need. Perhaps I'm missing white, perhaps I'm missing black, perhaps I'm missing a double of something or the other. I can go find it and create a food token, so I've got that going for me. So, Battle by Water. The 1-for-1 exchange for the board wipe. So destroy our creatures with power 3 or greater. Typically I'm going to have small creatures, especially if I do not have the flowering on the white tree in the deck. And then whoever's left I will create food for 3. Or for 5 I can destroy all creatures, no questions asked, and I gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. I haven't cast Fumigate in a game, so I don't know if I would actually prefer it, but anyway, I'm going to cut it. I'll probably end up putting it in my sideboard, and if I don't like Battle of Bywater, then I'll replace it, give it a shot. Maybe Toxic Deluge. Maybe I actually won't want to play Toxic Deluge in this deck. Anyway, those are the changes that I've made. If you have a good idea of what I should cut for Mithril Coat or flowering of the right white tree, let me know. I mean, the deck is pretty tight. It plays really well. It's a lot of fun. I'm not disappointed in it at all. I just wanted to make it a bit better. Buff up some of the themes. So for example, Fuel Test Frying Pan. Dump that for Mithril Coat. Assemble the Entmoot is Reach. Is that relevant? I'm looking forward to your ideas. Another idea somebody had is they took Go for the Throat out in favor of Hobbit Sting. I don't fully understand that. I guess in their playgroup they have a lot of artifact creatures to worry about. In my playgroup that doesn't really happen. So Hobbit Sting does damage equal to number of creatures and food you control. It sounds less reliable than destroy target non-artifact creature. Sure, it's 1 white, 1 colorless as opposed to 1 black, 1 colorless. But I'll keep going for the Knight's Whisper. That I could take out. I'm not in a commander deck. I'm not sure how great that is. Perhaps this should be Flowering of the White Tree or Mithril Coat. Do let me know. I mean, I'm hoping this reaches a wider audience, and some of you have played this deck, so you can give me some ideas. Tell me what you're doing.